What's up guys, I'm the Hot Coss Gamer and welcome to my first ever video. So for my first video as the Hot Coss Gamer, I decided to pick out an old classic of my youth titled Klonoa 2 Lunatea's Veil for the PlayStation 2. Already I can tell the greatest trial that I must face is learning how to pronounce the game title correctly. Klonoa 2 was one of the first games I played on the PlayStation 2, and like many games I played once I got my PlayStation 2, it completely blew me away with just how awesome it looked. And after getting a case of nostalgia fever recently, I felt it was the perfect title to christen my new channel with. For those of you wondering what my thoughts on the first game were, you should know that I only just recently got to play the first game, Klonoa Daughter Phantomile, for the PlayStation 1. And I have to say, I found it both fun and surprisingly challenging at points. There were a few things I felt could have been improved on, like being able to play previous levels and not having to wait to the end of the game to do so, as well as a few problems with aiming enemies at points, but besides that, it's a nice fun platformer that was very different from the likes of Mario, Donkey Kong and Banjo. So without further ado, let's get down to it. This is Klonoa 2 Lunatea's Veil. We start the game off with our protagonist Klonoa, who has somehow found his way into the land of Lunatea. As he lands in the sea, he's found by a young girl named Lolo and her friend Popka. In terms of how Klonoa 2 connects to the previous game, I honestly can't say. It's not that I wasn't paying attention to where the first game ended off at, but let's just say I think Final Fantasy X took a little bit of inspiration for its own ending. Though from the two games I've played in the series so far, they've never really told us how Klonoa can travel to these dream worlds. Unless of course he's part of the cast from Inception, I guess. Anyway, you've no doubt noticed right off the bat that the character designs are quite different from most other 3D platformers we've come to see in the past. Many of the characters and creatures have a very manga-like look to them, which I really do like. Oh, I should also mention that all the characters pretty much speak gibberish. Apparently it's based on the Japanese language, but I'm not even close to an expert on that subject, so I'm just going to leave it at that out of fear of being wrong or something. This works out well in my opinion, as it helps to convince us of this otherworldly location they've built up. Also, it kind of helps us avoid bad English dubbing. Funny enough, the remake of the first game that came out for the Wii actually included a full English voice cast. And from what I've seen from it, it wasn't really good. Sorry, it just wasn't. As you can see, the game is played in a perspective known as 2.5D, which has the player stuck on a single plane, but can still twist and curve in different directions. This is definitely where the game franchise finds its footing and proves its uniqueness to some of the other games we've come to know over the years. Where you might think that keeping to a single 2D plane in a 3D environment might be too restricting for the player, it proves to be vastly creative with both how the game looks and plays. I'll be honest, I'm surprised that not many other games have taken this kind of approach in game design before. Granted, I've seen later games like Sonic Generations use this approach in unique ways as well, and even a few other 2D platformers like Rayman Origins and Donkey Kong Country have had you jumping between the back and foregrounds. But at the time this game came out, it's pretty impressive with what they managed to craft. So anyway, after they ring the bell that Lolo and Popka were trying to reach, Lolo is made a high priestess. They go to the prophet Bajubia the Wise, who tells us of the 4 kingdoms of Lunatea and that trouble has been brewing within them as monsters have been showing up and priestesses have been falling ill. He tells us that the lost 5th kingdom of sorrow has shown signs of returning, and that Klonoa, Lolo and Popka need to ring the bells of each kingdom to obtain all 4 elementals to seal away the kingdom of sorrow once more. However, even more trouble stirs as the sky pirate Lunatea and her sidekick Tat hope to obtain the elementals first for their own unknown purposes. The plot, as you can see, is very much a simple one in design, but they do shift things around when it comes to reaching your goal. I'll admit, we don't really get much of an idea of this ominous threat that's approaching, or even how it's affecting the world in any way. These enemies don't even really get in your way or interfere in your journey, they just walk around, or fly around in some cases, with a big smile on their face. One of the interesting traits with Klonoa is that you can jump and do a little air walk for a bit, but not double jump. Instead, Klonoa needs to grab an enemy with his giant ring and use them as an extra jump to reach further platforms. Enemies can also act as projectiles that can be launched at others and are required to take out some of the more bigger and armoured enemies that you'll come to face. Just like Mario, Klonoa is very limited in the different buttons needed to be memorised, with only jump, shoot and the directional keys, which is another example that less is sometimes more. You can also use the L1 and L2 buttons to perform actions that look pretty cool and, well, are just a fun feature, I guess. The levels are very basically structured, with you having to reach a certain endpoint as you come to expect from most games. There are points where the path will divert off in separate directions, whether it's to collect more dreamstones or find hidden doll bells, which I'll get into a bit later. The way you'll see the game change the most will likely come from the enemies you encounter and how you use them to progress through the levels. As I said, your average enemies can be used to jump higher or be thrown, but you've also got ones like these bomb enemies that blow up, these ones that help you fly, and even these ones that can be used to absorb enemies to remove coloured crystals. What's great about these gameplay mechanics is that not only are you doing your usual platforming that you've done before, but you also have to use your skills to solve some of the puzzles that you'll be faced with. Now just understand, when I mean puzzles, I mean the same way you deal with them in, say, Mario Galaxy, where most of the time you have to look and think for a few seconds or try it 1 or 2 times. They're smartly designed and incorporate a nice balance of platforming and enemy tossing and give you a bit of satisfaction from solving them. However, it's not just keeping to your feet, as you'll come across levels where Klonoa gets to use his board and surf his way towards his destination, whether it being water, snow, sand, or, I don't know, space-time continuum or something. These are super fun and very action-packed, and even break away from the 2D planar points. There are some levels you have to repeat, but have been radically changed, such as the difficulty, look, music, alternate paths, gameplay elements, and even the direction you'll be going. This is something that would usually bother me in most other games, but I don't mind it as much here because they do change it up enough for it to feel more intense the second time through. The boss fights are okay. I'll say the first 2 are pretty easy and simple enough, but they do start to pick up soon after. I do like the fact they change things up now and then, having you on a cylindrical plane most of the time, but also a straight plane and even using your board a couple of times. One of the things that bugged me a little in the first game was that most of the bosses were connected to the end of a level, which made things get pretty frustrating if you were low on lives at the time. Which I was. A lot. Here pretty much all of them are their own separate levels, with a few easy mini-bosses in the middle of some levels. You also added 2 layers of health this time around, allowing for more time with them and thus a bit more challenging. The themes of the level are pretty nice and really gel well with the game's overall dreamlike vibe. My personal favourites are Jolant's Fun Park and the Jungle Slider. Both are super colourful, well detailed and have the best moments in the game for me. Also there's just an upbeat vibe about them that makes you want to replay them. You also get a few weird levels as well, such as this one set in a huge house that's definitely taken pointers from a few M.C. Escher paintings. One of the last levels you do comes with such a creepy atmosphere just from how twisted it all looks, along with limbo-like music playing in the background. It is kind of weird that in this world you can go right from a land based on a cheerful amusement park and then next go to a land where all the inhabitants are at war with one another. But they do actually bring this up, and I suppose you can really find some intrigue into how each of the kingdoms reflects their individual emotions. Kind of a smarter way than just having a jungle land, a snow land, a water land, and well, you get the idea. The characters are fun enough. Klonoa is the kind protagonist we've come to know who'll help a person out even if he's just recently met them. However, judging from his personality change from the first game, he seems a lot more experienced of the dream worlds he's pulled into, and understands what will inevitably come after he's completed his task in this world. Lola's probably the most character-driven in the game, as she feels the need to prove herself as a priestess, but we only really see this pointed out around 2/3 of the way through. She does power Klonoa's ring though, so I guess she helps out a bit, you could say. Popka helps out here and there by giving a few tips, but really doesn't do much else. To be honest though, the whole group sure do have a thing for just standing around when things stir up constantly. Also, from the looks of the scene here, Popka may be related to Wolverine somehow. As for the villains, there's definitely some intrigue to them. I mean, who doesn't love sky pirates? They do prove their intelligence by not repeating the same "we'll get them next time" tactic that has been shown time and time again with most classic video game villains. They do show this through their many methods of manipulating Klonoa and his friends, and they do seem to do a good job of it. I mean, if the team did something, I guess, when the villains were in front of them, maybe they could have been stopped a lot sooner. Seriously, they're like right there. I will say this, when it's revealed what happened in Leorina's past that led her to become a pirate, it's not exactly deep. It's more or less just her being angry at the world. But I will say I like the fact that we do see some redemption with her character towards the end of the game. One part that I wanted to talk about that may be weird for bringing it up is the camera angles they use. Normally when you're on a single plane, it's pretty average, but when you fight out one of the Four Dons, you get some pretty kick-ass scenes, mostly from how it's viewed. Another reason why the jungle side level is one of my favourites is the epicness of jumping off a large waterfall. It's scenes like this that remind me what a powerhouse the PlayStation 2 was, and this came out in 2001, mind you. I should also talk about the awesome music that the game provides. There's a great balance of uplifting and sometimes daunting music used. My favourite has to be the one used towards the end of the first level called Going to Lunatea, which just listening to it gives you a good idea of the game's atmosphere. As you progress through each level, excluding the boss fights, you can come across monument doll bells hidden throughout the levels. If you can collect all 6 in a level, you're rewarded with a doll that goes towards unlocking 2 time trial levels. If you want some more challenge after completing the game, then these are definitely a nice final addition. If you're able to collect all 150 Dreamstones, you'll be rewarded with a piece of art in the scrapbook. This, unlike the doll bells, is not a simple task. It's not necessarily whether you can find them all, it's that at times you'll come across a bird called a mirror spirit that's supposed to double the amount of stones you pick up for a short amount of time, meaning that if you find one, you're going to have to plan out how to get all the stones nearby fast. There were many times I was just a few from 150 because I didn't pick up a stone fast enough while boosted. But really, while the art does look nice, it feels a lot more like promotional art, which is a shame seeing as how the game is so well built. It would have been nice to see some of the more inner sketches that went on behind the game's development. In short, Klonoa 2 is a fantastic platformer that I feel is very underrated. The story is sweet but simple, the levels are colourful, and the music kicks ass. It is a shame the series never really hit the ground like some of the more well-known platformers of today. They did have a few games for the Game Boy Advance, as well as a volleyball game for the PlayStation 1, and of course, as I said, a remake of the first game came out for the Wii. To be honest, I think the series would look great on something like the 3DS, and with Namco's close partnership with Nintendo lately, maybe we'll get to see a return from Klonoa very soon. And that was my first video, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and check back soon for even more videos to come. I'm the Hot Coss Gamer, and I'll be seeing you guys around.